it to order. So, good evening. My name is John Mursky. I am chair of the Ann Arbor Energy Commission. And as chair, I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. I am participating from my home in Ann Arbor. Welcome to the June 14th electronic meeting of the Energy Commission. This virtual meeting is to affect social distancing and mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We will conduct this meeting similar to in-person meetings. Commissioners, during roll call, please indicate your current location. During the meeting, please remain on camera just as you would be visible during in-person meetings. Also mute your microphone when not speaking. Public comment will be via telephone only. To speak during any of the two public comment opportunities, please call one of the following two numbers: 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099, and enter meeting ID number 937-6751-6819 on your phone. This information is also available on the published agenda in the public notices section of the city's website, on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn. Missy, would you please read the land acknowledgement?
Thank you, Chairman. Delighted to. I acknowledge that the land the city of Ann Arbor occupies is the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe and Wendat peoples. I further acknowledge that our city stands, like almost all property in the United States, on lands obtained generally in unconscionable ways from Indigenous peoples. The taking of this land was formalized by the Treaty of Detroit in 1807. Knowing where we live, work, study, and recreate does not change the past, but a thorough understanding of the ongoing consequences of this past can empower us in our work to create a future that supports human flourishing and justice for all individuals.
Thank you. So we now come to the roll call. As I mentioned, we got notice from Larry Kerber that he's en route to Washington State, so he will not be joining us. And we have Edie joining us from Bonn, Germany. She can tell us more about that maybe later in the meeting. And Sheree, when we maybe are done with the end of the roll call, you can introduce yourself. We're welcoming Sheree Smith to the Energy Commission. This is her first meeting, and we're excited about her joining us. And she's got a great background that I'm sure will enable her to make a big contribution to our work. So Missy, I'll let you do the formal roll call, and then I'll turn it over to Sheree. So
perfect. Just a reminder, please state where you happen to be occupying the land at the moment. Chair John Mursky.
Present and participating from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Levin.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner McComber.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Vice Chair Colvin Garcia.
I'm here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner McCoy, absent. Commissioner Kerber, absent. Commissioner Overbeck.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Great. Commissioner Juneau.
Here in Bonn, Germany.
I love that. Commissioner Smith.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Excellent. Councilmember Briggs.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Medina.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Great. Chair, you have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Just to remind everybody, Commissioner Hookham gave his resignation so that he could do consulting work for OSI. We hope to welcome some new members soon to the commission, but we have a new member who you already now know at least by name and face on the screen. But Sheree, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself Maybe we can also go around and just give a sentence or two about each one of us as a person, so she at least has some background about each one of us.
Great. Thank you so much. Very excited to join you all and looking forward to working with you all. My name is Sheree Smith. I am a director with Guidehouse consulting firm. Originally from the Ann Arbor area and have lived here most of my life. I took some time outside of Ann Arbor at Cornell University when I left for school, where I have my educational background is in civil and environmental engineering. And then came back to Ann Arbor shortly after my graduate studies there to raise my 6-year-old daughter here and looking forward to really engaging more deeply in the community. During my career, I started off with an energy services company as an energy solutions engineer, really identifying energy efficiency opportunities in commercial buildings. And actually during that time had the opportunity to work closely with Ann Arbor Public Schools and identify some of the energy efficiency opportunities and actually a behavior program to kind of educate the community around energy efficiency and the importance of it. And then kind of moved on after a couple of years to what was Legacy Navigant, now Guidehouse, and have been with Guidehouse some 10 years now. And during that time, I had the opportunity to oversee a lot of our client work with DTE, an energy efficiency or energy waste reduction program, as some of you may be aware, leading program evaluation, understanding and validating the impacts to validate savings, customer research, strategy and regulatory support. So a wide variety of work in that space. I've also had the opportunity to serve on the My Green Power Community Impact Pilot as a subject matter expert focused on community solar within 3 communities within Michigan here. Also had some time to oversee some project work with the advanced customer pricing pilot, so the time of use pilot, also with DTE. So have some rates experience and background as well. And most recently work on our Guidehouse Mobility Solutions team, which is really focused on EV programs, again, strategy, regulatory, evaluation type support. So have varied backgrounds and again, looking forward to contributing to our group here and working with all of you. Very excited to join.
And we are too, as I said. Now you know why we were excited when we read Sheree's application. So I'm going to go around what at least appears to me on the screen for me. And if you can just introduce yourself very briefly. Sheree and I have already met and talked with Missy, so I'm not going to belabor my introduction. But Erica, if you would introduce yourself briefly, and then I'll call on people from there.
Sure. I'm Erica Briggs. I represent Ward 5, City of Ann Arbor, and have served on City Council since 2020.
Noah.
Hi. Excuse me. Welcome to the commission. I live on the west side of Ann Arbor, and I have 2 kids that go to STEAM that are now going into 5th and 3rd grade. And I have originally came to Ann Arbor to the School of Natural Resources, as it was called at the time, and I also now have a law degree from Lewis and Clark in Portland. Welcome again.
Thanks, Noah. Edie.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Edie Juno. I also came to Ann Arbor to go to formerly SNR, now SEAS, for a master's degree in environmental policy and ecology. And I currently work for a nonprofit, the National Wildlife Federation, on forest, climate, and energy issues. So welcome.
Travis.
Hi, I'm Travis Ferdina. I am the Ann Arbor City Council member from Ward 3, or one of them. Also been on council since 2020, and welcome to the board. Look forward to working with you.
Heck.
Hi, Sharish. I'm Jonathan Overpeck, or I go by Peck.
And I also came to work at the School of Natural Resources and the Environment, now called SEAS, School for Environment and Sustainability. And I'm actually the dean. Very happy to have such amazing alums.
Bridget.
Hi, Trish. Welcome to the Energy Commission. I have served on the Park Commission in the past for 6 years, and I've been on the Energy Commission for a while. I'm the finance director at the Ecology Center, where I've worked for over 20 years. And I happen to have lived in Ithaca in my college days. So it's nice to hear of somebody else who's been to that area. It's amazingly beautiful, really interesting stuff happening in that city still. So welcome.
And then finally, Carlene, and I realized I'm not being very informal and using everybody's first name instead of commissioner and council member, but I think that's okay. Go ahead, Carlene.
Hi, Sheree. Welcome to the Energy Commission. It's really great to see you and be interacting with you more in person this evening. My name is Carlene Colvin Garcia. I'm the vice chair of the Energy Commission. I've been on the commission since 2017, and I've been particularly active with the transportation electrification endeavor here in the city. I, together with a team of visionaries, co-authored the Ann Arbor EV Readiness Ordinance that was passed early in 21. And I have been very active with the community, with the schools, with education and curriculum development for hands-on project-based solar power curriculum, in particular K through 8 grade levels. That is right now being rolled out at the Ann Arbor STEAM at Northside School. And I am right now building my business with EV charging, installation consulting, focusing my efforts with multi-unit dwellings to support folks, landowners and tenants to bring EV charging to their multi-unit housing. And I also am a licensed residential builder focusing on green building. So nice to meet you.
So that's our team, and welcome to the team.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet all of you.
Great. And we'll look forward to one of these days meeting in person, face to face, and we'll figure out how to do that. We might talk about that later in the meeting too. So I'm going to just deviate real quickly because I got a text indicating that the meeting ID number wasn't correct. And I've been texting with Missy, and Missy, do you have a correct number that we can share with people? Or
well, the meeting ID is correct on Legistar. If anyone goes to the public Legistar site under this meeting, if you use last month's meeting, maybe they're looking at May, it is a different because we had to upgrade the system. But under this one, June 14th, you'll see the same call-in number and the meeting ID is different. And it is the right ID. I tested it when you all were introducing yourself on it.
So on the agenda, it's the same number that I read, which was 937-6751-6819. Is that wrong then?
Hold on. Yes. The agenda listed, here's the meeting ID number. And again, anyone that's on Legistar will see this. The meeting ID is 956-8718-7876. Again, posted on Legistar, everything is up to date with that number.
So it is 956-8718-7876.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Same phone number, just meeting ID is different.
Yep, perfect, great. And I'll mention that again in a second. Okay, so next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion from in a second from members of the commission to approve the minutes? I've reviewed them, and if you take my word for it, or if you've read them myself, they're fine.
I move to approve the minutes.
So moved by Vice Chair Calvin Garcia and seconded by Councilmember Radina. Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, raise your hands. Very good. So it passes unanimously. Don't have to ask about nays or abstentions. So we're good to go on the agenda. I was actually talking about the minutes. And so first the agenda, that was the agenda actually. Now the minutes, let's approve the minutes. Can we have an approval to approve, or a motion to approve the minutes and a second? Sorry about that. So a motion from Councilmember Medina, a second from Commissioner Juneau. All in favor, say aye. Aye. No one's opposed, so it also passes. So now we are at public input, and this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes. If you are watching on CTN, the numbers are correct. Please call 888-788-0099 or 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 956-8718-7876. This information is also displayed on the agenda. Actually, that number is wrong. Don't use that number. Use the number I just read off. And the video feed. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated message indicating that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area, mute any television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. And finally, state your name and your address at the beginning of your comments.
Caller ending in 134.
Thank you, Dr. Stelton, Chair Mirsky, and for the corrected meeting ID number. Ken Garber, 28 Haverhill Court. I really look forward to tonight's 820 talk. The slides show a huge list of accomplishments. Congratulations to city staff. I just have a comment and a question. Strategy 2, Action 1 of the 820 plan says, quote, promote home and business electrification, unquote, and assumes that, quote, all new residential and commercial buildings are designed and built to operate without the use of natural gas. I track new building projects that use gas heating. Since June 1st, 2020, the city has approved 487 residential units, 275,000 square feet of new commercial space, and 254,000 square feet of hotel space, all of which burn gas. I'm not counting the few all-electric projects. Using standard estimates for gas emissions per building type and a conversion factor that takes into account upstream emissions, I calculate that together, these projects will produce 14,100 metric tons CO2 equivalent emissions per year. There will be some gains from reduced commuter miles, but it's a small fraction. For context, you will hear tonight about the 3 megawatts of new solar from the Solarize program and the 4 megawatts scheduled for city facilities. Great numbers for sure. Applying the city's DTE electric emission conversion factor and assuming a 20% solar efficiency rate, these 7 megawatts of solar will prevent 7,934 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions annually, which is great, except that the 14,000 tons from heating new gas burning buildings wipe out those gains not just once, but twice. Putting up solar panels is self-defeating when we construct buildings that will lock in gas emissions for the next half century. The climate, of course, does not respond to good intentions or dollars spent. The climate only responds to the actual physics, the amount of CO2 and other greenhouse gas emissions, gases we dump into the atmosphere. And we are losing ground there. That's my comment. My question is, what do we do about it? The 820 plan urges state passage of the IECC Zero Code Appendix. That's under review, but even if adopted, it won't go into effect for almost 2 years. The appendix doesn't preclude gas, and it doesn't apply to low-rise residential. We often hear that state law prevents the city from passing a stricter building code than the state code for new construction. As a categorical statement, this is incorrect. There is no clarity in state law on this question. I think we should move forward with a natural gas ban like others have done, most recently New York City. Michigan is a strong home rule state, and the courts here give cities wide deference in such cases. I'm certainly open to other ideas. Anything but the status quo. We need to stop the bleeding and fast. Thank you.
And thank you.
That is all, Chair Steve.
That's all. Okay, very good. So we can then get directly into the heart of the agenda. And the first major topic is an update on Washtenaw County Climate Action Planning. And Missy, I can see that elevated Matt Nod. Matt, we're going to let you introduce yourself. You are well known to most of us, but there may be a few of us that don't know you. And also, Andrew DeLu, thanks for joining us as well. Like I said, we'll let the two of you introduce yourselves and play team tag on your presentation.
Well, maybe I'll start and let Andrew go because I'm going to be moral support and jump in when he needs me. Andrew's been a great client and awesome leader in this space. And I think this is the second of 3 evening meetings with IPSI, Ann Arbor, and Celine's various commissions. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Matt Nod. I live in Ann Arbor on the west side. See my council member, and so I'm waving hi. I've lived in Ann Arbor since '95. I was the environmental coordinator for the city since 2001 to 2018, and had an opportunity to retire early, but I joke that I still had a very expensive daughter at the University of Champaign-Urbana who did just graduate this year. So I've been consulting, doing a lot of work with a local firm called Resource Recycling Systems, doing work for the state of Michigan and with a really good team, including Elevate Energy, Chip Smith with Wade Trim, EcoWorks, Beth Gibbons, nationally recognized adaptation expert. Who am I forgetting? CNT in Chicago with Elevate. We are working on the Washtenaw County Climate Plan, and it's called Resilient Washtenaw. And so that's me, and happy to be a resource if anything else comes up, but I'm going to pass it on to Andrew and let him share with you where we are.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew DeLu. I am the Director of Strategic Planning for Washtenaw County. I'm coming to you from Western County. We've got some broadband challenges here, so if I happen to sputter a little bit, great for me. So I'm really excited to be here and speaking with all of you. Certainly, the city's work and climate action is in the city. Tremendous amount of support, both Missy in particular, as well as the other folks in OSI as we've worked to develop our plan. And so I'm excited to talk to you tonight about what the county's plan like. It's still formative. Kind of the end goal of the process is to go back to our Board of Commissioners by the end of the year. And we think we've got a pretty good at this point. Certainly there's a lot of work to do. Tonight, I'm looking just to tell you about our project, the scope and the shape of that project. We've recently released our draft project framework. That framework is structured similarly to other climate action plans, but I think there's some things that will be in Washtenaw County just because of the space and the communities that we cover. And then finally, we'd love to hear from all of you, either tonight or at some future date, in terms of what else we need to do. We've been trying to think about ways that the county's plan can be supportive of the local plans that are in place and can be very complementary in terms of, again, some of those additional resources that we have. And so we'd just like to be explicit in terms of asking that question. I think you'll see a lot of alignment in terms of what I present, but the feedback's great. But certainly want to hear you doing things better now. So a brief presentation that was shared with you. Apologies, I've made content, which scoop me if I'm taking.
Hey,
I'll
Andrew.
break if there's questions.
Andrew, this is John Mursky. You might consider going off video because you're breaking up, and a lot of times we just see a frozen image of you anyhow.
And Andrew, let me know if you want to share the screen. Am I doing that co-host, or if you'd like me to share for broadband reasons?
Well, I hope that's better.
You're still coming in broken.
Is that any better?
Your audio is good. Yep.
Okay. So I can't tell. Missy, are you able to share your screen?
I can absolutely do that. Let me do that.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know if Matt heard this, but Matt, if things get too bad for me, I would appreciate if you could jump in and take over. As I've talked about, we're here to talk about our climate action plan. If you could please move to the next slide, Missy. So our plan is really focused on both climate mitigation and adaptation. That's important for a lot of reasons, and I will try to touch on those over the course of this. But the base goals for the plan are things that have been set by County Board of Commissioners through resolution. These happened in the past couple of years. There's been other actions taken by our board on climate. But the two that are really pertinent to this would be net zero county operations by 2030 and a net zero Washtenaw County by 2035. We are currently in the process of updating our emissions inventory for the plan. We're not yet done. We ran into some challenges with data collection. And so recently I've had some good progress on that. But we did an initial inventory in 2019. And the estimates at that point were 7 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent at that point. So we think that that's right, and still would certainly expect that to be the right order of magnitude. But we are working to update that, and certainly know that we need to have good information in terms of the sources of those emissions inside of Washtenaw County. The county relatively is much tinier. We don't have a water plant, we don't have streetlights, we don't have a bunch of the other stuff that the city does. It's mostly buildings and then vehicles for us. And so our county number is about 14,000 metric tons. And so, still good work to be net zero by 2030. But the one that I think will be much more challenging is certainly the countywide goal in terms of what it will take for us to reach there. And then our plan is going to look a lot like other plans for good reason. It'll look like A20. It'll look like the city of Ypsilanti's plan. And to some degree, it'll look like the state of Michigan's plan. That's intentional. We want to align with those things and be supportive of them where we can. We want to go beyond them where we need to. But again, trying to align with the other good work that's being done inside of the county, I think is important for us. I think the one thing I would point to in terms of what our plan will include that I think is very important in terms of the county's priorities is the vulnerability assessment. And so we've been spending a lot of time trying to think about how we can best understand the communities inside of Washtenaw County that will be harmed by climate change. The things that we're looking at right now is the most important things will be understanding folks that are vulnerable to high heat days, folks who are vulnerable to flooding events, and then trying to understand energy burden inside of the county. And the thinking with that is that the county already provides services generally to the most at need inside of Washtenaw County. And so by incorporating those types of considerations into our climate action plan, we can make sure that we are thinking about our actions helping the people who need the most help. Washtenaw County, there's a lot of folks who are going to be able to do good work on their own and who don't need the county's support to take climate action. But there are also people who won't be able to do this without our support, and feeling like, again, those are going to be the places where we need to think first in terms of directing our work. Next slide, please, Missy. So generally, we're doing this because it's a good government thing. We think that government can play a role in addressing big social issues, and so that's why the county is involved in this work. I think past actions have been insufficient, certainly at the county level, but pick your level in terms of the insufficiency to date. size and complexity, we know stuff doesn't stop at the borders of the city of Ann Arbor or Washtenaw County, certainly. But it requires all entities to get involved in thinking about how we can change our society to move away from fossil fuels. The county has a bit of a unique role inside of Washtenaw County, and in the past has helped work in other similar issues of broader concern, and think we can help in this place as well. And then we've also got very strong direction from our board and the community in terms of doing this work. Next slide, please. So the key components of our plan, there's both the organizational and the community goals. We're trying to have those be seamless and well integrated where we can. Mitigation and adaptation are both really important. The board has not set adaptation goals, but again, the priorities of our organization are to think about how we can provide services and provide infrastructure to at-need communities. And so adaptation really goes along quite well with that. We want to be in alignment with existing plans and services of the county, and the county both as an organization and the stuff that happens inside of the county. We have a very strong equity focus, and you heard me speak to that in terms of the need for the vulnerability assessment, but we've been trying to think again about the areas of greatest need and those most likely to be harmed by climate change. And then collaborative, trying to talk with folks and understand how we are able to do this work while being, and this is a challenging balance, but I think we want to be cognizant and aware of the other responsibilities and services that need to be offered while we work on climate change. And I can speak more to that, but the reason for that philosophy is, we're trying to get folks on board, and the county has quite a wide difference of communities in terms of where they stand with climate change, what they've done to date, and what they can do. And so we think that we're going to be more successful through that type of approach. Next slide, please, Missy. Thank you. Matt spoke to the project team. They're great. You know a lot of them, and so I can speak to them for quite a bit. But you're probably already familiar with that work, so I won't spend too much time there. But I think we're very fortunate in terms of the group that we've got working on this plan for the county. So in terms of engagement, lots and lots and lots of engagement. It's probably never enough, but we need to keep on putting time and effort into talking to people about our plan, understanding what they are concerned about as a means of making sure that we're addressing the right things inside of our plan. So that includes local governments and institutions. Within county government, we've spent a lot of time trying to work with staff and the different boards, committees, and commissions. Just to touch on that, I think the county, through its boards and committees and commissions, similar to the city of Ann Arbor, gets involved in a lot of work that happens. And from where I'm sitting, I think that's really a great opportunity to expand the reach of the county's climate action plan. Very preliminary, but I think as an instructive example, the road commission, I think, would be a good example of that, or some of the transportation planning that happens through Watts. There's a significant amount of infrastructure spending that happens inside of Washtenaw County. The county is involved in that decision making. There's not a single decision maker, but to the extent that we can go to those groups, help them incorporate climate considerations into their decision making, help them set their own climate goals, we think that, again, we'll be able to get more people involved in this work and through some existing channels that we already have. A lot of discussion with community groups and the general public. And then we also have two advisory bodies that have been set up to provide regular check-ins on this. We've got an environmental council, similar to some of the other groups that are out there working on this. That's a subcommittee of the Board of Commissioners. But then we've also convened a staff steering committee, and that's made up of leadership from around the county, our Parks Department, our Water Resources Commissioner, our Health Department, our Emergency Planning Department, a lot of the functions of Washtenaw County that are already responding to climate change and are really concerned with how well we do climate change planning going forward. We've got a website set up. It's a great website. We'd love to continue to drive people to that website. We have been using this to solicit feedback in the early stages. We're in a little bit of a lull right now as we do some more behind the scenes work, but we'll be going back out there as we move into our second big engagement push later this summer. But we've got a great mapping feature. We've been trying to get ideas of what people like regarding climate projects or climate action, what they're worried about, and what they'd like to see done differently. So it's been great, and I would suggest that you check it out if you haven't already. So our timeline, where we are right now is about halfway through a 12-month project. And I'll say right off the bat that we know the plan that we delivered this year will not be perfect. And so we are trying to balance the urgency of addressing climate action and then, the challenges of pursuing perfection with this. And I can speak to more on that. We have just wrapped up and have released our draft framework for
We're losing you, Andrew.
a complementary set of priorities. Okay, Matt, can you?
Happy to jump in.
Okay, thank you.
I think where Andrew was, and if you go to the Resilient Washita website, there's a version of this slide deck with the strategies and priorities, strategies and principles that the county is starting to focus on. So I think Andrew was just running through this timeline. In a perfect world, it did take a long time. We didn't get energy data from DTE until last week, and I think that's 7 months of waiting. But we did get it, and we did get it at the zip code level, so we've got a little more granularity than we expected. So Hank and Elevate are working on that. So we're hoping to have a draft version of this ready for public review comment in August, with the idea that we would have a working session with the Board of Commissioners in September, so that they could hold at one of their meetings in October, have the plan be on the agenda, with the hope that in November it would get approved. So we'd be looking for any of your thoughts, either formally as a commission, because you get to make recommendations to Ann Arbor City Council, or individually. So I've told people, feel free to give us good ideas offline and unattributed, and we'll get them in the mix. Next slide. So there are 7 strategies, and the way we've thought about these are just how do you organize the county's climate story, and the actions are going to be the important part. Currently, we're thinking about organizing them around 7 key areas. What's different about the county is public health is one of their main service areas. So health is front and center in that work. Currently talking about energy transition, and we have some language associated with each of these that you can read on the website or if Missy shares the slide deck. We think infrastructure investments is going to be really important. Water Resources Commissioner, flooding, that county-wide stormwater work. Currently thinking about the kind of recycling waste world is circular economy, and how do we really grow that circular economy here in Washita County? Mobility and access, got to reduce transportation emissions, get people out of their vehicles, give people the modes of transportation that they're seeking. And then again, what's different about the county is working farms and natural areas, and how do those fit as you think about climate change. State of Michigan climate plan came out with a 30 by 30 goal, preserve 30% of the land by 2030. Currently, we're thinking about how does the county fit in that? How would you balance that preservation around working farms versus natural areas? Is there an intersection with, could you preserve land, put solar on it, suboptimal ag land, put solar on it, and then put lots of compost and grazing, and then 30 years from now, turn that back into much more optimal ag land? So kind of some interesting thoughts in that area. So those are the strategies, how we're organizing the big ideas in the plan and starting to build the actions that go within. And a lot of those are pretty well known. We need to do energy efficiency and electrify everything. And I think the key question for the county is what's really in the county's wheelhouse that they can help with directly? And then how do they again, the unique part of the county, and I think if Andrew didn't mention it, I think this is the first county climate plan in the state of Michigan. But a key part of this is how do you get 28 local units of government who don't always have to play nice together to work together to solve for climate and protect public health and environment from a changing climate. So those are the strategies. What's really important as well are the principles. And the idea is these are county priorities. County has a racial equity office. They've declared racism an emergency in the county. So these are the kind of, all of the actions will be, how the priority is set will be based on how well they move the needle on carbon, move the needle on adaptation, but also racial equity and environmental justice, the idea of just transition. There's real opportunities to create good jobs if we do this right. Resilient economy. Again, there's an economic development opportunity by keeping money that was going to ship coal into Michigan and keeping that here in Washtenaw County. Again, health fits in both of these categories because many of these actions are going to have a public health benefit. Again, because of the county's convening role, what are the roles of the NGOs, the partners, the local governments in kind of helping work together on this? A lot of this is looking at opportunities to scale the good work that's already going on at the local units. And how do we kind of work together and do that countywide? Communication, transparent engagement. And so for each of those strategies, we're really trying to focus on just big 5-10 actions in each of those categories. We're hoping not to make this a 150-page plan, but really focus on those high-level, move the needle actions. Lots of other work that's going to go on through the years and low-hanging fruit, but that's the idea of where we are right now. Next slide, Missy. So the way we're trying to describe this, and we've shared this with the public, Andrew talked about there's goals, how to set what are the goals for the county as an organization, countywide, carbon neutral by 2035. I talked about the principles, really important priorities of the county that we want to use to set the priorities for the actions, strategies, how we're organizing it around these 7 categories. And then those actions, and again, really trying to focus on those things that reduce carbon emissions. And as you all know, it's going to be really hard for the county to get to carbon neutral by 2035 without DTE doing a lot of things. We're also exploring things like carbon offsets, a lot of greenwashing in that carbon offset space. And we've gotten some good feedback that we got to be careful about those, but there's a lot of good work on land preservation, kind of taking suboptimal ag land, using it for pollinators. There's a great guy at Michigan State that's doing national work for USDA and how do you pay people to do that. So I think it's one of those things that we're probably not going to solve it by the end of this planning process, but I think a county local carbon offset program would be a really interesting thing for the community to build. Next slide. So I think I'm not going to go through all these words. Missy can share these slides. This is some of the language, and we would welcome somebody who says, hey, I think there's a much better way to phrase this, wordsmithing. But these are the phrases we're trying to use to kind of clarify what we're meaning in each of these areas. Next slide. Talked about that. Next slide. And again, Missy's going to share those. This is some of the language we're using associated with each of the strategies. So again, please take a minute and read that. Next slide. So once we get these actions, and we have a couple of events coming up where, I forget whether Andrew mentioned, but for each of the strategies, 7 areas, we invited county staff from cross departments to work together and start talking about What are you doing already? What could you do if you could scale it with more money and resources? What are some big windows of opportunity? Are you building a new building that could be, we heard it from one of the commenters, all electric? And one of the county buildings, new parks at Stabler, is all electric. So how are we going to use these different criteria to set those priorities? So next slide. We talked about this a little bit. Board of Commissioners ideally will approve this in November. What we didn't mention is a separate piece of our work is recommendations on staffing. What kind of staffing should the county be looking at? Because someone needs to own this work into the future. Funding and financing the program. There's some models for ways local governments work together around climate. And there's some communities that have been at this collaborative working for 10 years. And what are those models that Washtenaw County might look at? How does the county plan fit between the state plan and A20, the IPSI work, things like that? I talked about coordination with local governments. Next slide. So with that, and Andrew, if you've got bandwidth, you can fill in what I missed, but resilientwashtenaw.org is our website. And I've got one more thing to add. climate@washtenaw.org is a general email, but Andrew's email is a great place to send things directly. I do want to add that, an opportunities come up where Ann Arbor Township has decided to go out and explore climate planning. They put out an RFP. And what ultimately happened is they're going to work with the county so that their plan aligns with the county framework, that the kind of plan that's developed will really be the set of actions and implementation that really fit the township's needs. And so that process will be just behind the county process, which is good, but it also gives us a potential model for how some of the other local units of government in the county might work on their own more granular planning around climate adaptation, but do it in a way that aligns with this broader county umbrella. So really kudos to Ann Arbor Township for one, deciding to work on this, but also deciding to work on it in a way that is more likely to align well with the county's project. Andrew.
So this is Andrew again. I hope I'm coming through clearer now. Glad to see the nods. Thank you, Matt. I think Matt touched on all of it. I think just the points that I'd really like to reiterate would be trying to align with other plans. I think there's a lot of good work that's already happening inside of the county. The county doesn't want to recreate new stuff that's already working well, right? And so to the extent that we can look to other folks and help support things that are going well, I think is going to be a key strategy for us. And certainly there's a lot to look to in what's happening in the city of Ann Arbor. I'm glad that this presentation is happening before Missy's update, because it'd be a really hard thing to follow in terms of all the work that the city's reporting on and what's happened over the past year. But I say that in terms of, there's a lot of good work that is happening across the county, and not only with Ann Arbor. And so I think to the extent that the county can, help support those things is a really key part of how we're trying to approach this work.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to open things up now for questions and discussion, if appropriate. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Commissioner McCumber.
Thank you, Matt and Andrew. It's nice to see the language about justice and equity. I'm curious to know, as part of this planning process, if community members, particularly vulnerable communities, are being involved in the planning process.
Yes. Yes, they are. I think, we're not done with that, but we've been trying to focus our outreach and engagement. I think it's been easy for us to talk to a lot of groups that are already doing this work. And, people have been calling us up and we're certainly happy to talk to them. But I think in terms of the quality of the plan and our ability to meet the goals that we've just discussed, we need to talk to those groups. And so those groups, there's a lot of them in the Eastern County, and perhaps the Eastern County comes to mind first, but not exclusively. A lot of parts of the rural county have different challenges as vulnerable communities. Those things look different when you think about what those might mean with climate change. But again, we're really trying to put a lot of additional effort into reaching out to those vulnerable communities. We've got a good sense of where those folks are. The county already has an opportunity index tool that we use in policy development and program considerations. Some of our initial work or initial not thinking, but the initial versions of our vulnerability assessment show a lot of overlap with that tool. And so I think we generally know where those communities are, maybe not specifically enough to do actual programmatic decisions, but we know where we need to focus our outreach efforts. So maybe that's a little bit long-winded, but I think to your question, yes, we think it's really important. Yes, we've been spending time and effort doing that. We're not perfect with it and we have more to do, but we will continue to do that over the rest of our planning process and then beyond the planning process as well.
And Bridget, I'll add, I think Andrew's in the process of, there's going to be some handouts going out in the community on the east side, about 3,000. So we're trying to tap into some of these opportunities where the county's already working to kind of get the word out. We've done some work, direct outreach to some of the Black pastors on Superior Township and Ypsi, and COVID's been a challenge trying to get in front of congregations and things like that. But, some of that effort is getting out there. It's just probably not as much or enough as any of us would like.
Yeah, and I'd ask, if there's any specific groups that you all know of that we should be talking to, please pass those on. I think where we've had the best engagement has been through referrals and, not super large meetings, but smaller groups, of 10 or so, and being able to have a good discussion in terms of, climate change in Washtenaw County. And so those things not steamroll, but they escalate and they kind of lead to additional discussion. So I would appreciate any referrals, but we're continuing to do that work.
That sounds great. I just have another follow-up question. I'm curious if so reaching out and getting people's input is a great thing. Is there an intent to create a citizens and advisory board?
Yeah, that's the role that our environmental council is playing right now. That group was called or convened to help direct the county's work on sustainability and the climate action plan. And so we're looking to them to do that. That's a public group. They meet the fourth Tuesday of the month. They're open meetings similar to this. And so have appointments there. They're more of a steering committee. They don't do the actual outreach work, but that's the main channel we have through that, plus a whole bunch of direct input mechanisms for the public.
Mm-hmm. And are there is there good representation from some of the vulnerable communities on that?
Yes, I think probably not. I can send you the list and you can make your own determination on that. I think we've got a bunch of folks from around the county. It's primarily based on background experience in terms of why they're seated on that group. So it's not a geographic determination, but it is made up of people from around the county.
Thanks.
Other questions or comments? Anyone else? I have a couple of quick ones, and I'll also comment via email or on your website. I'm aware of the Wolfpack convening of a lot of entities within the county, City of Ann Arbor, U of M, that was done at WCC, by the way, with EMU, et cetera. There was a whole bunch of different entities there. Missy, I know you've had some talks with people since then, and I'm wondering between some of the key players, is there now sort of a path forward that will continue to take place, and that there will be some kind of formal coordinating role? Can anybody comment on that?
So I can, and I wouldn't want to speak for Missy, but I think what I'll say is it's been clear to the county that there's utility and having a coordinated voice from Washtenaw County when we talk about legislative changes in Lansing, being able to speak to possibly pursue outside funding. I think that's been, as we've worked through this, the discussion that Matt referenced with Ann Arbor Township, folks are looking to not want to replicate this work because, there's a lot of work to be done, and replication doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of how we spend our time. So I think in terms of what comes next, there's, from where I'm sitting, there's still that need, but the decision in terms of how we best work together hasn't been determined. But I think, I hope you've heard through the philosophy that we've expressed through our planning process, that the county certainly wants to be collaborative and to work with other groups with this work. I don't think we've used, I certainly wouldn't describe our approach as being authoritative, and I think there's probably some trade-offs with that, given, the work that we're talking about to be done. But, I think we're trying to think through that. And so I've had, informal discussions with Missy, with others, and, from around the county, and we'll continue to think on that. But I guess I hope I see that as being something that will be really useful in terms of helping the county pursue our climate goals.
Okay, the one other main question or comment, question that I had is with regards to financing. Matt mentioned it briefly, but financing is so important to a plan. I'm wondering if that's going to be a core element of the plan, or if the intent is to similar to, frankly, what Ann Arbor did, and to some degree what U of M did, is develop a plan with strategies, actions, recommendations, whatever you want to call them, and then deal with the financing after that has been digested, if you will, by residents and by leaders in the county. What's your thinking on that, or have you even developed?
Yeah, I think it's going to be both. Our board set the goals very clearly, and they said, give us a plan that meets these goals. And so I think we've got good benchmarks from inside of the county in terms of what it will take regarding money to meet those goals. And the county does not have billions of dollars sitting around right now to dedicate to climate. So I think we certainly need to give an idea of the magnitude of the costs involved with this. I think it probably won't be perfect. I think we're trying to, as we consider the climate actions, understand not only the cost, but the value of spending money on the plans, and what we can get with both the emissions reduction and adaptation benefits from various things as we think about costs. That's how the county tries to think about things, just not spending money, but what do you get for it? So I say that, and that we need to include money, but we will not have all the money day one. And that, the way in which we do this plan is going to require investment over time for the life of and beyond the plan. As a practical matter, we're also trying to think about, or I'm trying to think about, the existing spending that already happens inside of the county, both things where the county board of commissioners directly controls the budget, but other things, again, like transportation spending that happens inside of Washtenaw County, infrastructure spending that might be coming to Washtenaw County, and thinking about how we can use our participation in those decision-making processes to alter the outcomes. Knowing that, again, getting a dedicated pot of money is something that will be very challenging and will take time. So trying to think about all of the funding and financing options that we will have as a means of doing this. And I think just to touch on that again, or maybe take a different approach, really the county is trying to approach this in a very comprehensive manner, right? And we're already spending money on parks and natural areas preservation. Those things do a lot of climate benefits. We haven't necessarily quantified them as a climate action previously, but we're already spending money in doing that stuff. And so I think it's quite feasible for us to measure those things and to say, what's the value we get for that? And I think we can then look to those funds through that lens and give us a bit of a starting point as we talk about the resources needed to do this.
Great.
I'm going to add two things.
Go ahead, Matt.
Just real quick. Remy Long, who's now a city employee, has been using a tool that I believe was developed by C students, looking at the stored carbon in some of the land that's preserved. And it's been great. We're going to try and see whether that's something we can just start looking at. What's the order of magnitude of stored carbon in the preserved land? And that's the forested land. Ag's going to be a little different. And Pac, if you have any students, because what we're hearing is it does the stored carbon, but it's not looking forward as to the ongoing sequestration potential. So that's one of the things we've been talking with. The nice thing is we've shared that work with the state of Michigan, because in the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan, I think it was a little more back of the envelope. And so they're interested in taking that tool and maybe seeing how they can use that as the state thinks about the Healthy Climate Plan. The other thing I wanted to add is, if you don't know, SEMCOG is doing a GHG emission inventory for all 7 counties. So there's, again, an opportunity to kind of, is that going to be a regional scale that we might be able to work together across 7 counties, not just within 1?
That's good news. Does anybody else want to comment or offer up any questions? Okay, so I would encourage everyone to noodle over this, so to speak. And if you have any thoughts, please share those via the contacts that are on the last page, or some of you probably know Matt and Andrew personally and have their addresses, and you can contact them directly. So thanks very much for the presentation. I'm really excited about what you're doing. And I also just want to thank both of you for your long careers in public service. And we really appreciate what you're doing. And especially now directing this on climate action at the county level. That's great. So thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Apologies for the technical difficulty, but glad we could be here.
No problem. Happens to all of us, unfortunately.
Made it work. All right, so good to see folks and meet the new folks, and happy to help as we do this work. And
Matt and Andrew, of course, you're more than welcome to stay on and listen to the next presentation, which is Missy's presentation of 820 at 2.
At 2, I know it's crazy. I'm going to see if someone is free that I'd like to introduce you to, and he may not be. But in our attendee list is the newest member of OSI, Joe. He's coming over right now. Joe, do you want to say hi really quick to everybody?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Joe. I just started yesterday here at OSI, coming from a couple places, but did undergrad at Michigan State, grad school at Indiana University in public affairs and environmental science, and I've done a couple various things in climate change and such. So really happy to be here and looking forward to working with all of you.
Good to meet you,
Joe. Right to work, night 2, like day 2, we're doing a night meeting. So Joe, thanks so much for joining us. We're glad to have you. So to jump in,
you're at least for me, you're coming over not as clearly on audio as you were before.
Right now, I'm not coming clear.
Does anybody else have the same sort of effect? Yeah, it's just, I don't know how to describe it.
Right. I'm going to try this way. Is this any better? Nope.
No, not really. I mean, we can hear the audio, but it's just a little muddled, I'll say.
Let me cough. I'll pretend it's me and not the audio. All right, let me just check audio real quick.
I don't seem to think that it's a connection issue, Missy. It sounds maybe more like your microphone sounds further away from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds fine to me, so I don't know.
Okay.
Y'all, we are problem solvers. I mean, I'll talk loud. I'm the only one in the office. So I'll do that. All right. Here we go, A20 Act 2, which is bonkers because we're already in year 3. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we have got going on here in OSI and how things have been moving forward. And I do have to start by saying this isn't all, there's just so many people that we would have to thank that have helped make the progress that we've made. And of course, it's not enough. But I also think that we spend a lot of time focusing on what we didn't do and not as much time celebrating what we have done. And sometimes we need that to help keep the momentum going forward for the big fights that are ahead of us. So this is a moment to kind of reflect back. I will definitely do some self-flagellation of all the things we didn't do in the midst of this, but I also do want to take a moment and sort of celebrate what the team and the community has accomplished. So let's start with a quick look back. So starting with year 1, I am going to go off because it's showing on my other screen. So I'm with you. I'm just going to go off camera to make this not look awkward. In year 1 of A20, some of the notable highlights, we have this report on the website, so you can take a gander at it. But we had the Solarize program, right? And we hit 1.3 megawatts of solar through that initiative. We hit Sol Smart designation. We were really focusing a lot on renewable energy. We launched the Aging in Place Efficiently program and really built the collaboration and partnerships to see that program gain some momentum. We launched the ambassadors, A20 ambassadors, and trained our first 22 individuals. We launched the 10,000 Trees initiative and got 1,000 trees in the ground in year 1. We were able to create the first resilience hub at Northside Community Center. And we started the design with Zingerman's and others for the A2R3 returnable container program. So really, year 1 for us was a lot of structural, setting up the systems, the work plans, the frameworks, and then running at a few of these programs here. Year 2, as we transitioned over, became a lot of implementation of kind of using that foundation that was built in year 1. And I want to start by saying of the 44 actions in A20, in this second year, we actively worked on 36 plus. So a lot of things are in play. And the plus is because A20 is living, right? So one of the things I talk about most commonly is when we wrote A20, we analyzed telework and we didn't think it was possible at the scale necessary. And of course, we had a pandemic that showed us that telework is possible for some constituents, but not all. And so it seemed relevant to start working on supporting telework, which is not one of the actions in A20, but is an action that's helping reduce DMT for some portions. So that's the plus. Things that sort of come up that are really, really relevant, strategic opportunities, or things that honestly we wanted to do, we just didn't think would have the success that they're having right now. So I'm going to walk through these based on the strategies, just as an organizing principle, recognizing not everyone spends their time thinking about the 7 strategies of A20, but I do. So we'll start with strategy 1, which is powering our electrical grid with 100% renewable energy. Some of the accomplishments from this last year are Solarize went from 1.3 megawatts to 3 megawatts, and we're over because we put this out weeks ago. It's really, really exciting to see how that program, the behavioral science behind it, is spreading. We also have a map that I just saw today for the first time showing how it actually works in neighborhoods and how solar clusters through the program. So we'll be sharing that. I'll be sharing that kind of as we're going into year 3, some of the visualizations and reporting that we're hoping to get in place. We also started conversations for the commercial side of the Solarize program. To date, it's been residential focused. We know we're missing an opportunity in the commercial sector, but we also know commercial roofs look very different. Washtenaw Dairy's roof is different than the YMCA's roof, which is different than Grizzly Peak. Doesn't mean there's not opportunities, but we want to really work with those entities to figure out what this can look like. So Julie is on the commercial side of this program with Jan Culbertson at the 2030 district. Successfully, we've integrated a lot more education around efficiency and electrification into Solarize. Of course, solar, we sort of talk about it as like the chickpea steak, if you will. People are really excited about it. It's the main course, but we need them to also be thinking about electrification and efficiency at that time. And so we use that as a gateway for folks. And it seems to be working in terms of people get solar and then they want to do what's next. And they're already teed up for what comes in the system. And then, of course, not enough for Ann Arbor to do this on our own. So we worked with the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, created a replication guide for Solarize, and launched the Ann Arbor Solar Stories, where folks who have gone through the Solarize program every month have an opportunity to share their story with others, which just kind of helps people understand and makes it much more personal what the journey is like if you're capable of investing in solar. We also this year designed 4 megawatts of solar at city facilities. I wrote this before I knew. Council approved a contract for just shy of 1 megawatt on Monday night, not yesterday, but last Monday. That is at 9 city parks and also includes some ground mount and some rooftop systems, 5 solar carports, 26 electric vehicle chargers, and 2 batteries, one for the senior center and one for vets. So Burn Senior Center will be coming online as our next resilience hub, as will Bryant Community Center, which I'll talk about in the end. So we're really excited to see those move. We also did a lot of work this year on the 20 megawatt landfill solar project, which is now named the Wheeler Center Solar Park. This one went on ice at the very end, literally after, the Energy Commission meeting that we had when we brought it forward and you passed the resolution. The tariffs had just been announced. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. With last week's announcement that the president invoked the Defense Act to invest in solar and put a moratorium on these tariffs, this is off ice. So we're waiting on updated pricing, and I hope to have this move forward by the end of the summer to contracting. So that'll be a success. Hopefully in year 3, we'll see this project break ground. And we continue to intervene in rate cases. We are interveners in 20836, which is the rate case currently being heard by the Public Service Commission. We intervened, as you all know, and got settlement in 2713, which was the voluntary green pricing program, which includes the My Green Power program. And that's how we got Wheeler Center Solar Park to become a community. That's Siri, community solar initiative, which we're delighted to see. It would be the first in DC's territory. We also in year 2 developed a proposal for the sustainable energy utility, and we joined a working group with the World Resources Institute, looking and starting to get ahead, thinking about how we plan for a 24/7 power offering. So while our goal in A20 is 100% renewables, we've always thought about that as a year kind of shore up. Over the course of the year, we used X. Did we also generate X or purchase X amount of clean energy? I anticipate that in the not too distant future, we're going to want to try to get to real time. When I'm using electrons, I use electrons clean energy. And that requires a very different type of planning. So we've joined a working group to start getting ahead of that strategy. Pivoting to strategy 2, which is beneficial electrification. We have hosted a number of resident-facing educational workshops on this topic and have incredible turnout, more so than I expected, so much so that after last summer, a workshop that we hosted with a few hundred attendees, we started to panic that we would have a bunch of people let loose on the market and not have contractors to support them, which is why we worked with Michigan Saves and got a great grant from the state to create an electrification training and contractor badging program. It is live. It was launched at the end of 2021. You can go into the Michigan Saves website. You can search for if you need an HVAC contractor, and you'll see this orange badge that's demarcated here against any contractor that has gone through the training program and is certified as electrification first. So this is a contractor that is knowledgeable about electrification options for things in like cold climate air source heat pumps. So instead of being talked out of something, you have someone who's capable of really understanding your situation and helping you make the right decision, which might not be a cold climate air source heat pump, but it might very well be. So you don't want to start from the assumption that you've got to convince your contractor to do something. You want to start from the assumption that you're both going to find the best solution to your situation. So excited that this is launched, and it's the training program is across the state. So it's not just Ann Arbor. Anyone in the state can go through this program and get the badge. We also joined a cohort with RMI, formerly the Rocky Mountain Institute. We're working on other cities to design an electrification campaign, kind of similar to the Solarize campaign, but thinking about the nuances in our climate where electricity is more expensive than natural gas. So how do you actually design a campaign? How do you structure it? How do you support it? How do you make it accessible to lots of different folk? So Julie sits on that with Fawn. We also worked with IBEW and NECA on the Futures Electric initiative, which helps people understand, and you can see the screenshot here, understand the opportunities around electrifying, and actually helps point them to contractors here that pay living wages, family sustaining wages, to help people make that transition. We developed the H0 home assessment, which we're piloting in Bryant. This combines strategy 1, 2, and 3. So I put it here, but it's all things. It's looking at the renewable energy potential on site, an energy audit, and an electrification assessment. This is kind of like the full service. So you get a roadmap to how to decarbonize your home. And we've piloted it in about 12 homes in Bryant right now. The goal is to pilot in about 100. So we're actively recruiting more folks into that initiative. We've drafted the Green Rental Housing Initiative, and Zach talked about it a number of times to the commission. Had a lot of public engagement and activity on this. It is with legal for some initial feedback. And I've kept legal very, very busy on something for the last 4 weeks. So I haven't got any feedback from them and keeping them focused. But this hopefully will come loose in the next few weeks, and we'll be able to see this move forward in year 3. We've been working on many, many elements of the energy concierge, especially more recently, the people service portion of this. So we've been talking with folks like EcoWorks and Elevate to actually create someone, an actual person that can help folks when they have questions, navigate what to do, help find contractors, find services. And I'm working on a contract right now to help pilot this initiative. So this might be in it straddles year 2 and year 3. We've successfully transitioned 20% of the city's fleet to electric. We have our refuse trucks on order. They were ordered quite a while ago. They are back ordered in supply chain issues, but we expect the first one to hit the street sometime this fall, and shortly thereafter the second to come in to operation, which I'm really excited to see those big trucks come into the fleet. If you don't know, on July 15th, we have an electrification expo that's happening at the farmers market. This is something that we planned based on public input and excitement around electrification. So we, as of today, have 30 vendors signed up to come and talk, bring equipment, show people the benefit of electrification, we'll let people interact with appliances. It's for renters, it's for homeowners, it's for businesses. Anyone can come and enjoy some time learning about electrification and actually engaging with folks who can help make that happen. We installed 40 dual port chargers in DDA garages. That's 80 additional chargers, and not 40. That would be incorrect. That's a typo. We have 4 fast chargers at City Hall. 40 would be insane. I would single-handedly have blown up the MISO grid. So I'm not going to do that. And this is a small one, but a really significant one. We updated our permitting system across the city, and as we were doing that, we successfully got electrification into the permitting process, which means as people are doing things like installing induction stove versus a range or putting in a heat pump, when they have to pull a permit, we're actually getting that information. So we're able to track how many people are transitioning to electric, which is great because without that data, it's sort of hard to know how effective some of our outreach initiatives have been. Strategy 3 is around energy efficiency. Here we passed Michigan's very first benchmarking ordinance for energy and water, which is super great. The first deadline was June 1st. We have extended the deadline until August 1st because it's the first time, right, that people are reporting. We're learning a lot about the struggles that they're having, and so far it's been really successful. And I want to once again do a shout out to the 2030 district who's been helping us with this. Overall, we're really impressed by what we're seeing. People are engaging in the system, and it's starting to lead to questions about how folks can reduce their energy consumption, which is the goal. We have completed 19 homes in the Aging in Place Efficiently program. The program is officially out of money. It is grant funded, but we are fundraising, and you'll see that's a high priority for us for year 3 because we have a very long wait list of older adults who are in pretty desperate need of some support to be able to stay in their homes safely and reduce their energy usage. We also were asked to join a White House coalition on energy performance and water performance, which we did. I wish I could tell you more about what that looks like yet. It just formed, and we're not 100% sure, but I believe we go into discussions later this week to kind of create much more structure around what this will look like. But exciting to have vanguard communities from around the country sit with the White House and be able to really push for some support federally on the kinds of initiatives we're moving forward with. We worked with Jen Hall and the Housing Commission, and together we won $2.5 million to support net zero energy affordable housing. Right now, the RFPs are on the street for the final work that we need to do to make a number of housing commission sites net zero energy, but this is super exciting. And so this was an earmark that we won largely because of teamwork, because we keep promoting this and doubling down on communities' commitment to affordable housing. I think really elevating this project. We have also submitted a grant, $2 million grant to support the work in Bryant, fingers crossed. You'll see later, we won a number of smaller grants. This larger grant from the Department of Energy would really help us actually make the improvements in the neighborhood. Continue pushing for the codes to be updated at the state level. There's a hearing that's happening shortly. I'll happily forward that to the commission. And then I just saw yesterday that the residential code is now up for comment. So we continue to organize around that. We designed the carbon neutral fire station in tandem, obviously, with the fire department, and we are actively fundraising. It'll be the first in the state of Michigan, and we think it's the first east of the Mississippi, but all depends on when we break ground. And then kind of just a little bit of inside work. We have successfully integrated sustainability into the city's plan review process. So as a developer comes forward with a project or an idea, we want to be at the table at the very beginning, and we haven't historically been. So this year we were able to get at that table. So right from the beginning, we can talk about 820, the goals that we have, the objectives. And this just happened recently, and that changes a lot of the tone and tenor. So by the time we get to planning commission, we've already had conversations. We've already worked through many issues. We've already asked for electrification, as opposed to coming in at the end. It's really hard to change when a project's fully designed, but when you're at the beginning of a process, you have a chance. And then we've done energy audits at 4 of our city facilities, and right now we're working on a plan to make them the first 4 fully decarbonized buildings we have in the city. In terms of strategy 4, reducing our VMT by 50%. So we are working on a carbon calculator, which is helping us analyze transportation emissions and include both in planning projects. So as people are proposing developments, what's the impact of having people closer, further away, but also for us to understand how people are moving and have a more effective calculator to be able to gauge the kinds of decisions like protected bike lanes. What really is the impact that those have on the system versus extending sidewalks versus bus expansion. All are needed, but we want to sort of understand where and how those things function. We are working with planning actively. We meet with planning every week right now and trying to find ways to integrate 820 into the Unified Development Code. And there's lots of changes that have come forward, like the removing of parking minimums was one of the things that we worked on. And there's some other work around solar siting. We're working to do away with height restrictions when it's solar. Solar is the thing that breaks the height restriction, whether that's on a pole or on a roof. So things like that, front yard solar, you're likely going to see that coming back as something that's valuable. And then continue to support protected bike lanes. We've seen growing ridership, which is really great. We've got bike discount programs, and then I already mentioned the parking minimum. You're doing great, almost done. Strategy 5 is moving towards a circular economy. So we have our reusable container program, which is expanding. Super exciting. We wrote a number of grants for this. We've been successful in getting some grants to actually secure funding to do a business plan. So far, the city has really supported this initiative, but we know if it's going to take off. And we have a lot of people who are interested in being a part of this, but we've been reluctant to bring more businesses in until we have a sustainable business plan. So we have a nonprofit that's ready to run with us. They just want a grant to help develop that business plan. And hopefully in year 3, you're going to see this take off throughout the whole community, which makes me really happy. We did move to around composting. Hooray! We're beginning in a few days, downtown commercial recycling. City Council directed us, and we've been actively working on a sustainable food purchasing policy for city purchases, but we've also got a working group that's helping us think about how we do this within the community and what does sustainable food mean? Is it local? Is it organic? Is it plant forward, plant based? Does it have no packaging? All of those things are really important. Workers' rights, animal rights. So we're trying to figure out how we in the city frame sustainable food and how we score it. How do we let people know what is the most sustainable option? And it's a really exciting area of work, and it's a work where people have very strong feelings about what sustainable food means. So we've been talking to the university around this as well, and a little bit with the Ann Arbor Public Schools to make sure we have some alignment around how we classify food. We have successfully run 2 zero waste week-long challenges. Over 1,000 folks have participated in those challenges, and in the fall we're going to run our 3rd with the University of Michigan students. We're going to continue this. It was just wildly successful, super fun. Hopefully you guys participated in them. If not, I can't wait for you to do it. Really accessible. And then we also are working on a circular economy strategy. So we have a working group, and we've been doing a bunch of outreach to different stakeholders to understand who's already operating within the circular economy space. We're doing a map of businesses that are in the circular economy. There's way more than I ever knew existed. And then also try to figure out how we tie all these things together into a more holistic approach to advancing the circular economy. And then just as on the side, we started to really ramp up our work on reducing refrigerants within the system, because while there's not a lot, they have extremely high global warming potential. So anything we can do that is really helpful. Strategy 6 relates to enhancing the resilience of our community. We have we planted 2,500 trees for our free tree giveaway and our community tree plantings, which is just amazing to me. So these are trees on private property. We also have all of the support. We've got a support app for folks. We've got education for folk that help make sure that we're not just planting trees, we're maintaining the trees that we're putting in the ground. Staff went through master rain gardener training, and we're starting to promote that way more in the community because flooding is getting more intense, as we saw by the storms last night. And so we want to be able to help residents as they're making choices about installing green infrastructure to maintain their site and avoid flooding. We've installed the very first air quality monitors in the city, one in Carytown and one in Bryant. There are 2 more sitting in the office next to me. One is going to go on Main Street, and one is going in an Ann Arbor public school, so we can monitor idling emissions and identify solutions there. And then we have a goal for many more coming into the system in the coming years. We're working with the hazard mitigation team to integrate climate more holistically into that plan. You may be familiar, we've done this in the past, but we didn't go really, really deep. And this time it is just entrenched in that plan, the impacts of climate change, both directly and indirectly. And it's cascading through all the actions that are falling out. Public comment, we had one public kind of period during the planning process, and we've got another coming up soon, and I can't wait to maybe we can bring that plan forward to the commission for your comments, more questions. I'm gonna buzz through the rest of this because you guys are doing great, and it's like, so we have actually funded the 2nd and 3rd resilience hubs. Yay! So in the last few weeks, we funded Bryant Community Center to move forward. And as I mentioned before, the Senior Center. We've also been doing resilience assessments with Avalon because we want to make sure our housing commission sites are top. 2nd and 3rd cohorts of ambassadors are through the system. That soil carbon calculator Matt now talked about it. We funded it. Sean staffed it. So super exciting to see it being used throughout the community. And then we did some modest support for No Mow May, but are gearing up to make No Mow May a thing that Ann Arbor does. And then in the other category, last week, we finished the final tranche of funding for the Sustaining Ann Arbor Together grant program. So we will have given out $100,000 this year to community initiatives focusing on community-based sustainability progress. We are in the beginning of an anti-idling campaign with Ann Arbor Public Schools, and you already mentioned that air quality monitor. That's part of it to really understand what emissions look like, so we can reduce them. The Collaborators Network continues to grow, and we just continue to do public engagement. Never enough, as you heard Andrew say, but a really fun part of what we do. So we had over 100 community meetings, presentations, events, discussions over the last year. So I want to just take a minute and acknowledge some cool things, right? We were recognized as one of only 95 communities around the world to be an A-list community for our work, in particular on transparency and reporting. We are a Michigan Green Community Gold community, which is great. I want to call out Cindy Barr won an EV champion from Cranes, which is so wonderful. Sean won the government award for urban and community forestry here in the state of Michigan. Julie was named a George Sexton Public Servant of the Earth, the best possible award. I think you could never get that title. It's amazing. Galen was appointed to the board of the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. The SEU won Project of the Year from GLREA. So it's great. And I really wanted to put that forward too, because sometimes I think the team focuses on all the things that we still have to do, as opposed to the fact that we are making some progress. So just to close out, I want to tell you a little bit about what's coming forward. And I'm gonna riff off this. So the thing I'm most excited about, we just got permission for. We've had a darn hard time getting a dashboard set up. We've worked with IT on a platform, and that we designed the whole platform. We were ready to go live a long time ago, and then the platform was not compatible with the city's website. We've had all these hurdles, and that is really frustrating to me because we have all of this data that we want to be sharing. Well, we just got permission to stand up our own website and use a different platform to report that. So a high priority for us, we run an IT call this morning, is we're going to get that platform up and operational because I want everyone to be able to know transparently what we're doing, where we have success and where we don't, and where we have to pivot and change. So you're not going to see that on this list because I didn't know when I wrote these slides that we'd be able to do that. That makes me very excited. On Tuesday night, we go to council with a PPA contract for 3 megawatts of additional solar at city facilities. So we'll hit that 4 megawatts of solar. Because of the lifting of the tariffs, I think we're going to break ground on the landfill solar project. If we get pricing back, let's change. Supply chain issues have impacted solar installations around the country. But if things look good, we're going to bring that contract forward. And if it's approved, we will break ground. We are going to hit 2 megawatts. Julie hates when I say this out loud, but we're going to figure out how to get 2 megawatts in the next year. So we get to 5 megawatts of solar through Solarize. We're going to have to collaborate more with the county. We've got to figure out what regional collaboration looks like in a deep and meaningful way so we can sustain this work and really institutionalize it in our region and then draw more federal funding to this region because we are the leaders in this work. And that also involves working deeply with the state on the My Healthy Climate Plan, both to support that plan, but also to unlock funding and resources and make sure that funding and resources are built into that plan for local units of government. And then policy-wise, we're going to get the green rental housing and home energy rating disclosure over the finish line. It's time. We've got a lot of engagement that's been going on, a lot of design work, and they just need to be over the finish line in year 3. We also want to take the H20 home assessment we're testing in Bryant and bring it up to the full market. We'll have that circular economy plan. And the 2 top priorities for us in terms of fundraising are aging in place efficiently and Bryant. Bryant is my favorite project. It is the most meaningful, sustained project I think that we do. Everything matters, but this one just touches really deep to the values that I have and the reason I do this work. So we have to find a way to correct market failures and fund the work in Bryant if we're going to equitably decarbonize. If we're going to stay true to our values. So we are deeply committed to fundraising there. There's some other things on this screen that just want to share. Those are the primary priorities. But overall, I think the future looks pretty bright. We got a lot of work to do. You know what? But we've got a great team. We've got a great community, and I'm hopeful that we're going to figure it out. So awesome. Thanks, Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Missy. Okay, folks.
Can we just applaud?
Yes, you may.
Amazing.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Carlene.
The quick question just about an event that you mentioned that's going to be taking place in July at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. I think it says it starts at 9 p.m. Can you let us know what time it's actually going to start, which I'm sure you didn't mean.
I probably did not. No, I think it's 6 to 9 p.m., but I'm pulling up the flyer that I just sent to CTF. Right?
It's from 4 until 9.
This is
4 to 9? Okay.
4 p.m. till 9 p.m.
It didn't show up on my side, on my end when I was doing it.
At least I have it entered in my calendar that way.
I have it as 5 to 9 p.m. at the farmers market, and let me just share with you all while you ask the questions. Here is what this event looks like. Ta-da!
Ah, there we are.
The community high school band, I believe, jazz band is playing, so obviously that's worthwhile. I love it.
Missy, do you need any support from the Energy Commissioner, or are you getting also people who have electrified that are willing to table? Are you? What's the?
Yes, that is the largest area of need we have right now. We have a few folks who have done electrification in their home who are willing on speaking, but we could use more. So if you have made the transition either fully or in part and would be willing on spending a little bit of time with us, we would love that. And should the Energy Commission want to have a table and talk about the commission and the work, 100% you could do that. We have space.
Okay. And just send who an email? Fang is the one organizing it, or?
I would send Julie Roth an email, or Hannah Loftus.
Okay. Okay, so
I have another really quick question about, could you embellish a little bit about the soil carbon calculator, what it is, and then is this something that's going to be posted like on a website that we can interact with?
Yeah, I think it already is, but let me find it. Yes, so what it was, we worked with Remy Long and a bunch of master students to understand the impact that soil has, different kinds of soil in different parts of the city as we were thinking about development. So what amount of carbon is actually sequestered in the soil, what's sequestered in the leafy material, the ground cover on top, so we could understand as we're making decisions and trade-offs about development, we can think about density and having people in a certain space, but we also wanted to add the impact of that soil and disrupting it and the emissions that would come from that. So we've used it mostly in the green belt when we're making decisions on the quality of product to buy or a piece of property. So it's another value that we take into consideration, but also you would not talk about, we're trying to transition it to other land uses and other types of soil. So more in city, we could help have kind of more informed decisions about how to develop on those sites. Is that helpful?
Can I ask a question about that real quickly? Are you also, does the tool evaluate things like moving to perennial crops like Kernza, or changing to no-till practices and things like that? Do you know if it evaluates those kinds of things?
I don't think so, but I'm happy to have Remy and the students come and see if they wanted to give a presentation on the tool. And as I heard Matt talk about, there's interest in the state in growing it. So maybe we could talk about what it is and what it could be, if that's of interest to the commission.
It seems it might be maybe also possibly to the Environmental Commission. I don't know what would be the appropriate, because I know when we've talked about Greenbelt topics in the past, some of those have been in the Energy Commission because we talked about solar on Greenbelts, but in other cases, we've talked about the Greenbelt in the Environmental Commission. So maybe we put a pin in that and come back to that.
Okay.
Councilmember Radina.
Thank you.
Oops, thanks, Carlene.
Thanks. So I can obviously direct people to this Legistar attachment for folks who might be interested at the greater public, but is there an easier space for people to go and digest kind of some of the accomplishments or anything like that? Is there a space we should direct folks?
Yeah, thank you. So you're the first to hear this. Later this week, we'll be doing a press release and putting out the actual report that is like a more aesthetically pleasing summary of this, and we'll have this as an attachment. So it'll be on the city's website very shortly. You were just the sneak preview. We're still in design work, but yeah, I'll send that out to you all as soon as we also post it so you can have it.
See, I think there's also a full page up on heat pumps on this OSI's website, right?
Yeah.
So a bunch of resources on that. If anybody should ask, you can direct them to that.
So who would we contact once we have access to the full report, the backup, and if there's any questions that we have, will there be some place in the report that can guide us to where we can find more information if that's something that we're interested in?
Yeah, great question. I would say the way we drafted it, not for each item, because as you just saw, there's a lot of stuff in kind of the summary, but I am thinking maybe the best thing to do is for each, because we organize it by strategy as well, maybe for each strategy, I can put in a point person. So even though it may not be Simi, if Simi's running point, he knows who to connect you with. Would that be helpful? Okay. Let me make an edit right now.
Anyone else? Missy, I sent an email to you and I copied, go ahead, Commissioner Briggs.
I just wanted, not a question, I just wanted to reiterate kudos to you and the entire team. This is really incredible work in year 2. It is there's a lot that's happened. I'm glad that you and other members of the team are getting recognition for all of the work, but it is exciting to see us moving forward so rapidly on so many actions and all 7 strategies.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. Yes, certainly significant accomplishments. It's truly a pleasure to see all the great work that's been done over the course of this past year. With that, with any plan, I imagine there's been challenges as well. So I guess in the report, or I heard you mention dashboard, do you plan to kind of outline some of those challenges and mitigation strategies here as well?
You know, what we have that we're releasing really is more of kind of really easy to read summary of the things that we've accomplished with a little bit more context. So we don't spend a lot of time in all the reasons other things did not happen, just because that isn't really the character of what it is we're putting out. What you're noting, though, is super important and something we document a lot in individual project-based work. I wonder, I mean, the dashboard was meant more to be transparently reporting on progress. And if we've got a goal of 100% renewable energy powering the community, how are we doing? I mean, how much renewable do we actually have compared to where we need to be? So I could imagine that in that dashboard, we could include some education about the ways to up that number and the challenges to upping that number. But we haven't gotten yet to design because we just found out we could do that earlier today. So I'm not 100% sure the right way to explore the challenges more publicly, but would welcome thoughts and suggestions on how to do that.
Absolutely. Just thinking there may be an opportunity to capture learnings and how to improve upon, based off of, again, the kind of the work and the challenges that we're up against.
Yeah, we've made a pitch before to funders and those who want to see local governments collaborate to actually lend some support to do case study drafting because all of the communities that are doing this work are not incentivized to tell their story in that way. And we know what we learned, but it often doesn't get pen to paper. You move on to what's next, right, in the to-do list. I wonder if we could explore maybe something, Peckham with me, with students at C's that we may be able to have some help, maybe even an intern for a summer or a class project where folks are really documenting the lessons learned and the struggles of this work so it can stand and be shared. I heard him say yes. I don't know if anyone else did it.
Did you have anything else, Sheree?
No. Again, I think all great ideas, and just wanted to kind of open the question, the dialogue about the opportunity to explore again capturing some of those items.
Missy, I submitted some questions via email, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to address those. If you don't have them handy, I can summarize them briefly.
Yeah, I will be honest that I am under deadline for something else, and so I did not prep for those. So I'm happy to take those questions.
Okay. So some of them I think you can probably answer right off the cuff, and it'd be fine actually if you just simply say, well, that's something I want to consider or think about or respond to later. That's perfectly acceptable. So some of the questions are more straightforward. Some of them are a little bit more longer winded, I would say, and they're offered in the spirit of continuous improvement, thinking that we'll also have reports A20 at 3, A20 at 4, A20 at 2030, where we'll hopefully be at 0 or some form of 0. So the first question that I had was the inventory. As far as I know, the last inventory was done for calendar year 2019.
It is actually done for 2020, and it's on our website, and you can see it. And we did a report and a video summarizing it. When I read your question, I talked to Thea and realized that we just need to have a stable, we're coming in August because the inventory is done in August with the update. So I can share that with the commission. But it was done for 2020, and 2020 was anomalous.
Yeah.
With the pandemic.
Obviously.
We had a almost 22% reduction in community-wide greenhouse gas.
And is there roughly a timetable when those updates could be expected? Are we thinking June, or what's the typical?
Yep, it's summer, and plus or minus, depending on the data access that you heard Matt talk about. But I think if you're open to it, we just plan to have kind of a stable, like in June or July, we come with the update to the commission with how we're tracking.
Okay. The next question I had was in the plan is really nicely structured. Hopefully Washtenaw County does something like this, where every action had what were baseline assumptions, what are indicators of success, what is the timeline at the bottom for various actions, and then also in a summary table, there's total costs, total greenhouse gas emissions, emissions reduced, and as an output of that, what is the cost per metric ton or kilogram, I guess it is, I can't remember, I think it's metric ton of CO2 reduced, and then also co-benefits. And just my thought or my question was, would it make sense in future reports to report against those specific, let's say that specific framework, where we can really see this tied to this, and this is what the outcome was, or we anticipate seeing the outcome at such and such a point in time?
Yeah, I think that it could be in the report, or it could be on the dashboard. So the way I sort of the dashboard is that we're actually tracking against those, and so it's real time reporting, and then maybe the annual report touches on that, but directs to it and highlights. You know, we moved from here to here in year 2.
Yep. No, I really like that idea if it's on the dashboard. The next question that I had is when at the very beginning of 820, there was a prioritization summary that was generated. And my sense is that we haven't heard much about it. And I'm wondering if that is still actually a living summary, and if it's still being updated, and if, for example, resources, be it dollars, be it staff time, are being focused according to that prioritization summary. And for everybody's benefit, basically it was, what does it cost? What does it deliver in terms of reductions? What is, I think there was something about the timing of the impact. Let's see, I wrote it down, I think. The feasibility and the co-benefits. And then points were assigned. And then based on that, priorities were identified. And for example, some of the things that really rose to the top were some of the things that had big bang for the buck, like energy efficiency and things like that, where you're getting a ton of CO2 reduced for $4. And then there's other things that we have in the plan that are in the thousands of dollars. And so I'm wondering how is that guiding time, resources put into, there we go. Yep. That was the framework. Exactly. Thank you for pulling that up. So various feasibility questions, what level of control we have, et cetera, and then what kind of benefits. And you can see on the right-hand column, there are points that are assigned. And then with those being applied to all of the actions that Missy showed at the beginning of a report, then there was a summary of what those were. And I don't know, does that document have the summary?
No.
Yeah.
This document is just the actual framework that was used. And it is on the 820 website if anyone wants to see it. Just wanted to show you.
Right. So how is that actually
using that? Or how we're communicating broadly?
Right. How is that actually guiding the application of resources and what we work on now versus what we work on in 2025 or 2028?
Yeah, so it's used in 2 ways. One was a filter by which the actions in 820 even fell out of, right? So everything went in, and the 44 actions that came out were the 44 that ranked the highest in that framework. So by default, we use it in terms of like what we're investing in. And then new actions have to run through that. So things like telework, we didn't think it was feasible, but it scored high in feasibility now. And so it came in to the plan framework. We've pivoted away from using that for individual actions. Like, is somebody going to spend time on X or Y? The answer is he's going to spend time on both. And how we prioritize that now is in a project management framework. We have a project management system where people have to fill out, like as they're proposing new projects that align with 820, they have to put in and actually fill out this whole charter that indicates what the action is, what they think like the strategic opportunity is, how it aligns with the framework, how it aligns with the goals and objectives set by council. And so we sort of use the prioritization framework as like the umbrella, and then the specifics fall out through the project management system we use.
Okay. And then let's see. I think you mentioned, so I had a couple of questions specific about looking forward. And I couldn't make out quite what you were saying. You talked about the landfill project and you talked about the Department of Commerce action. Is that project delayed or is it still on schedule?
I'm waiting on updated pricing. We were on ice for the 2 months when the investigation, for those who are unfamiliar, Department of Commerce launched an investigation right before we came to the Energy Commission. I mean, I think it was that week, maybe like a few days before, into solar panels manufactured in 4 countries, and imposed a retroactive tariff up to 200% of the cost of a system if you used any panel that had a part from those 4 countries. But 86% of all solar panels have parts from those 4 countries that we know of, and likely many more did. So it was an existential crisis for the industry. Things just stopped. And our project was one that also stopped. And what happened last week is the president put a ban on moratoriums for 2 years and invoked the Defense Act to up domestic manufacturing of solar panels, heat pumps, and other equipment. So that meant that the project could move forward with no risk of penalty while we're building the domestic ability to manufacture. So last week we met on Thursday with the project team. We're getting updating pricing. Unfortunately, when that happened, some manufacturers shuttered their doors. And so we need to understand the impact. But as soon as we get updated pricing, well, actually in parallel, we're moving the contract. We were almost done with contract negotiations. So we're moving those forward in tandem, hoping the pricing comes back. So I would say we lost 2 months, but we might, if the pricing comes back great, we might actually be able to still safe harbor the assets this year, which means we lock in the 26% federal tax incentive. So that's what I'm running on. So it is still possible. We would be breaking ground next year on the project. It would not be likely commercially operational, but it's not impossible that it would be commercially operating by the end of the next calendar year.
Okay, that's good to hear. I'd read, and I wrote in the email, I read something like 80 large utility scale projects in the United States have been canceled just because of all the uncertainty. Because for those of you who hadn't heard, those tariffs were going to be retroactive. So it was really nuts. I mean, with that kind of a tariff, it would have just made all these projects uneconomical, and people were not going to go ahead with a project that was going to be uneconomical. There was no mention of the municipal utility feasibility study. Could you give us a sense of with a timetable for that?
Yeah, so in the actual written report, we have a line that just says continue the investigations, because we are getting the timetables back right now from the bidders. So I just don't have a timetable to tell you definitively it would be done or it would not be done. The stance that we have in the office, and I think holistically as a city, is we want it as fast as we can get really high quality data back. So we will be pushing the vendors to move rapidly and to give us off ramps through that process, where if they evaluate something and it is just not going to work, we get it out quick. So we really minimize, which means they can go faster with a smaller scope of work. So that's the only reason you don't see it, is I just don't have it yet.
Right. And what about the feasibility study that council approved in January? The RFP is out, right?
Yep, bids are in. Bids are in right now, and so we are starting to review and interview folk, but they're combined, right? That task includes the SEU and the feasibility study. So that's part of the timeline.
So when is a decision anticipated on when the vendor is going to be picked?
Probably July.
End of July. Maybe.
More than you want to know. I'm going on vacation, so I leave on Friday. I'm not going to work, so it'll be after I come back.
Yeah. Okay. Then. Yeah, so we can maybe talk about some of those other. Maybe I'll just ask one last question because it came up in public comment. Natural gas ban. This has been discussed between Ken and you and me and the three of us and others, it's been something that Ken has been pushing at planning commission meetings and also here. Is the city's position absolutely definitive that we are going to wait and see what happens with the energy code, and if the zero code is adopted as an appendix? Is that what we're going to do?
I can't give you an answer that's going to feel meaningful on this. What I can say is that we are looking at this from different angles, including non-traditional angles, to try to figure out where there's space for us to move. And we have some ideas. We have some ideas that are not going to fly, but we could try to push. We have some that are ambiguous as to whether or not they're allowed, and we have some that are clearly allowed. So we are right now doing some work as staff to really figure out where there's space. And most likely this will become a council question of how much risk we want to take as a city.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically legal costs if we do some of this, right?
While it is true that Michigan is a home rule state, it is also true that our legislature is very quick to take away things, especially when Ann Arbor does them. And so we want to try to present something that has a chance of actually surviving, and that our lawyers can actually defend. So the answer is, I don't know, but we are working on it. And by we, I don't mean just us. There's a lot. The planning commission is very interested in this topic. The planning department is very interested. We've heard council, we've heard the planning commission, we've heard the public loud and clear. This is not a case where staff is just kind of back on its heels. We are trying really hard to think outside the box on this one.
I think just, we're here to advise council. And I think Ken, he hasn't shared his calculations with me, but I believe his calculations. And I think what we're seeing, what his concern is that we should all be aware that while we're doing all these things that you outlined that are really great, we're also doing things that are growing emissions. And there's other things, for example, that potentially are going to negatively impact us that we don't have a lot of control of. The new University of Michigan Hospital, that's going to have, it's going to be a huge new building. It's going to be U of M's, but also Ann Arbor's emissions. There's going to be 1,600 new employees just associated with that hospital. And there's not 1,600 new housing units in Ann Arbor. So that means those people are going to be commuting in. And that building is also going to be a very, very energy intense building. All these new developments that are going to be heated with natural gas are going to be offsetting a lot of the great things that you and your team have done. So it's something that we need to be aware of, that, when these developments come online in 2026, 2027, we're going to see those offsetting some of the great gains that unfortunately they will offset the great things that we've done, unfortunately. So, okay, that was it. And I think, does anybody, go ahead, Councilmember Regan.
I was also just going to add, to add to the complexity of kind of the ban on natural gas, there is actually Senator Zorn has introduced legislation at the state level that would ban local bans on natural gas. And so the current majority is not friendly to these types of things. And so I think that also adds to the challenge that Missy was talking about. I think we would need to consider really strongly, if we were to move forward on something, if that would actually give weight to his legislation at the state level to prohibit us from doing it.
Right. Yeah. We might open Pandora's box in a negative kind of way. That's basically your point, right? Yeah. It would close Pandora's box on us doing other kinds of things that we might want to do. Okay. I think that's it. We're down to now the few last topics. First of all, OSI reports and news from energy commissioners. I think we just got a rather detailed report from OSI, but missing that there might be a few other things you want to share with us.
I'll just share that on Tuesday night at council, we will be bringing, it's the last council of the fiscal year meeting, and we're bringing forward a resolution for a power purchase agreement for 3.1 megawatts of solar at 7 facilities: water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, Wheeler, airport, Steer Farm. Super exciting stuff. 2 batteries, large commercial batteries at 102.5 wastewater treatment plant, and EV chargers, 26 EV chargers that would go with the install we just had. So ending the fiscal year at least with a.
Commissioners, comments from commissioners, updates from commissioners, questions from commissioners. So I have some comments, and what I thought I would do is also provide some background. So there's been an email that was sent from Ann Arbor for Public Power to City Council that questions the appointment of a or the recommendation of an appointment to the Energy Commission. And what I first wanted to do was explain what the process has been in recent years when we make recommendations for appointments, and then what happens then beyond that. So I don't know that it's widely known, but for the last at least 3 years or so, Missy and I, Carlene as vice chair, and then our 2 council liaisons meet and we review all of the applications that have come in the last several years. So we're not just looking at recent applications, we're also looking at ones that are still on file with the mayor's office. So I think everybody knows that there's a website where people can basically make an application to join a commission, or actually several commissions at any point in time. And then as openings arise, we look at who is applied. We each study that individually. In last couple of rounds, I've done a summary and a spreadsheet to sort of summarize some of the key information from each one of those. And then we've had hour and a half long meetings where we've basically come to what we feel are recommendations on appointees that are then provided through Missy to the mayor's office. Ultimately, then the mayor has the right to make nominations for the approval of city council, and then those go to city council for approval. I don't know that everybody was aware of that process. Many of you or of us have been serving, and maybe I think some of the process steps changed a little bit. So recently we met, and one of the people that we recommend for nomination is Knox Cameron. Knox is a local, an Ann Arbor resident. He lives here in Ann Arbor. He's raising his children here. He's an employee of DTE. He works in the Mine Green Power program. And there was a big concern that was expressed, number of concerns that were expressed by Ann Arbor for Public Power. I don't know if this was sent on behalf of the whole organization, or which I think it was, or just a couple of individuals or their board, or however they operate. But what I wanted to do is just share with you at least my personal viewpoints on this. And I'm going to send these also to City Council. And I encourage anyone to speak up with their own opinions. Obviously, each one of us have a right to our own opinions, and obviously A2P2 had some concerns. Most of those concerns were related to DTE and DTE's actions with regards to its business, and how those in some cases conflicted with the goals of A20. But what I wanted to say is remind everyone, first of all, that the Energy Commission has had members from investor-owned utilities in the past. So all of you know that we had Chuck Hookham serving until recently. He, as he told us on his last meeting day, has been on the commission for many, many years. We also had, as commission chair, Shoshana Lenski. She served on the commission for 7 years, including 1 year as chair, and she has been a longtime employee of DTE. So past practice, at least, has been that we have not disqualified someone just because of who their employer is. No one represents, I think, in the commission, their employer. They're representing themselves. They're representing their own professional opinion. And I think we all know, we've studied and talked about the bylaws in the commission, that the bylaws require that any individual recuse themselves, or any other commissioner can raise the concern that someone may have an ethical or professional conflict of interest. And if that's true in those cases, then the person is to be recused from voting, as well as from even any discussion on that matter. Knox brings diversity to the commission along multiple characteristics. He's younger than certainly I am, and a few other people on the commission. He's an African American. He went to the University of Michigan, so he's got a strong background. Knox, in my view, should not be judged by what we might call the misdeeds, or the policies and strategies of DTE. Most of those strategies are set at the executive level. He has a managerial level in the My Green Power program, but that program was set up several years ago, before he joined that program in 2019. So I think it's a stretch to look at Knox and say Knox is somehow unqualified to serve on the commission because of that. And then I would finally then just simply say Knox is only 1 out of 15 votes on the commission. So he has an opportunity to raise his or her opinions and concerns just like anybody else. But that doesn't mean that he can't be outvoted. If we feel differently, we still have all of our individual votes. And I might also point out that I think most of us know that there's one person on the commission who has been active within the A2P2 community. I don't know if they have members or whatever they call their followers or whatever, but so it's not that we have said, well, we're going to start to exclude people because of their affiliations. So that was something that I wanted to share with all of you, and you'll probably catch wind of this. My understanding is it's going to be considered by City Council, but I wanted to share my thoughts with you and do that first with the commission before I did that with City Council, because I wanted to be just transparent about my feelings on this and encourage anybody else to speak up and to share their thoughts with City Council members between now and when that's voted on. So that was an update from me, and I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on it, but I don't see any hands up. So I would just ask one last time if anybody else on the commission wants to speak to any other topics before we move to working group updates. And I don't know that there's going to be much there because Carlene dropped off. She had written me, she had some other commitment at 8. And then also we had Edie drop out from her, sorry, my wife is boiling water in the other room. So Edie is, as you heard, in Bonn, Germany, and they're 6 hours ahead of us. So it's already 2 a.m. there. So I don't know if anybody else has any other updates regarding anything in a working group or from the Environmental Commission. I'm not aware of anything that's of particular interest from the Environmental Commission. So that takes us then to public input before adjournment. And so I will read off the spiel here as far as how to call in. So again, this is an opportunity for people to speak for up to 3 minutes. If you are watching on CTN, please call 888-788-0099 or 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 956 8718-7876. And this information is on the video feed and on Legistar. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of their phone numbers. And in order to raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone, and then you're going to hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments.
Caller ending in 134.
Thank you, Dr. Stoltz and Chair Mirsky. Ken Garber again, 28 Haverhill Court. Great presentations and very interesting discussion tonight. Just a quick question on the annual greenhouse gas inventory. This is a beautifully detailed report with essential information for tracking the city's decarbonization progress. I think I heard Dr. Stoltz state tonight that the report covering 2020 is posted on the city's website. I just checked and I can still only find the report from 2019. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, but when I spoke at the Green Fair on Friday with Thea Jagerlainer from OSI, she told me it wasn't posted, but offered to send me a copy. Anyway, if it hasn't been posted, I hope it soon will be. If it's there somewhere now, my apologies. I will check back with OSI in a couple of days if I still can't find it. Thanks.
That is also what I attempted to do. I also mentioned in my email, I searched on Legistar for greenhouse gas inventory and both last year and this year, and could not find it. In 2000 and whenever it was 20, when we did the 2019 inventory, then it was posted on Legistar and linked to in the agenda. So you might take a look at that, Missy. Any other callers?
We do. I'm sorry. I was trying to find it.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. Do we have any other callers?
We do. Can follow up, but I'm going to get it to you. Caller ending in 010.
Caller ending in 010. We do not hear you yet.
Still muted. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good evening. This is Wayne Appleyard, former Energy Commissioner. I was on Energy Commission for 26 years, talking to you from my all-electric net zero home in Norville Township in Jackson County. First, I want to applaud Julie Roth and the entire OSI staff for the several megawatts of installed solar generation. It's really a wonderful accomplishment. I totally agree with the previous speaker, Ken Garber, that the continued use of natural gas and the installation of additional natural gas usage is totally detrimental to accomplishing the A20 plan. And so CO2 remains in the atmosphere for hundreds of years. The area under the curve is of utmost importance. We simply have to stop combusting now. I do, however, understand that the pushback that is already occurring on the state level, as there is a Michigan bill, Senate Bill 820, that would ban such a ban on natural gas. Interestingly, the fact that this bill is in progress indicates that the current law does not, as Ken suggested, ban on new gas installations. I would like to propose a different ordinance proposal, which, although not an entire ban, may go a long way to having the same effect without a ban from the state. The ordinance would simply require that all new construction would require that the electric service capacity, load breakers, and electrical wiring to the locations of all installed natural gas appliances be provided, furnaces and boilers and such, in order to allow for the future conversion from natural gas to electricity. This would both reduce the cost of future conversion and increase the cost to the developer such that it becomes cheaper for them to go all electric. I think that is something that you should propose to the legal department and see what they think about it, because I really do believe it would be difficult for the state to tell you that you couldn't require that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. I would only observe that I've done a fair amount of research and spoken actually to a company in Pennsylvania that designs and builds and develops net zero multifamily construction, and their construction costs are actually the same or lower. And the state of Pennsylvania has done extensive comparisons and benchmarks of traditional construction against these best practices from a number of different developers, and it's simply not a cost premium to design highly efficient all electric buildings. So anything we can do, either convincing or with the kinds of ordinances that have been proposed, I think is something we really should take a look at again. Any other comments before we adjourn? Seeing none, it is 8:16, and I thank all of you for attending tonight and for your public service. I wish you a nice rest of your evening. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks. Good night.
See, have a great trip.